Workers are the driving force behind any economy. The Public Service Union presents PSU Speaks, an interactive, informative, bi-weekly program discussing matters affecting the working class. Tune in to Nice Radio on 90.3, 96.7, and 101.3 every second and fourth Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. PSU Speaks. Don't you miss it.
Joyful and triumphant, O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of ages. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him. Oh, come let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt his word. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder break and new and glorious.
Good evening, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and all listeners in the diaspora. A special welcome to our workers, and it gives me great pleasure tonight to welcome you to another PSU Speaks program, an informative educational program for workers throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In studio, I have with me our esteemed president, Brother Elroy Boucher, and our General Secretary, Sister Alexander Ross, who I would now ask to introduce themselves. Ladies were supposed to be first, but
I will spare Shellen at this particular moment. Our hands are pretty full. Good night, SVG. Good night, listeners, home and abroad. Special good night to our members, that is members of the Public Service Union. Good night, special good night, of course, to the working class, which of course includes all our members plus all other persons who are working. I want to shout out especially those workers who are still awaiting the result of the vaccine mandate appeal. Special good night to you. We have not forgotten you. I know that has not been in the news recently, but it is still an issue that is at the forefront of those issues that is being dealt with by the Public Service Union. I want to give a special good night to a faithful listener of this program, Almeida Noel. I hope sometimes Almeida say is Noel, sometimes you say is welcome. Well, Almeida, you can take both of them. So Almeida Noel and welcome. And a very good friend of mine listening all the way from Canada. Patricia, welcome. Let me say good night to both of you. This being our last program for the year, and the fact that I am sure that you are tuned in to listen to Public Service Union as we look back at some of the topics that would have been dealt with from January 2024 to now. I trust that you, yeah, you were, I trust that you are paying attention, and listeners, you will engage with us in this final program for the year as we look back on at different topics and where we at with addressing the different issues that we have attempted to look at throughout the year.
Okay, Sister
Shaden, yeah,
Ross.
it's over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and season greetings to all our listeners, our workers, Vincent John and the whole. With this being our last program, so let me take the opportunity to wish all of us or all of you a Merry Christmas and a very blessed and prosperous New Year. It is always a pleasure being here to discuss the issues affecting workers, and I am hoping that those persons who continue to listen will use the opportunity to call in and let us know what is happening. So I'm really hoping that we're going to have a very engaging program tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, my esteemed panelists tonight. Of course, I am Desrita, your moderator for tonight. So before we get into our discussions, many topics to cover tonight, I would like to share with you a scripture reading, and it's taken from Leviticus 19, verses 15 to 16. And it says, You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. In righteousness you shall judge your neighbor. You shall not go about as a talebearer among your people, nor shall you take a stand against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. So that is our scripture reading for tonight. And our president has already shared with you what our discussion would be for tonight. And we are going to basically look at 2024 in review. Over the year, the union brought to you several topics that looked at injustices faced by workers throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And tonight we are going to recap a few of those issues. However, before we go into the issues, the union recently met with the government at its annual budget consultation meeting. I think it was last week, and the unions were present, and I believe our president would probably like to just give a brief overview of what was discussed or what the union put forward at that meeting. So I would hand it over now to our president, Mr. Boucher.
All right, thank you. So we met, a number of us, myself, along with the treasurer and the young worker, Nyota Cupid, met with the government team comprising of Minister of Finance, the Prime Minister, the Budget Director, to discuss budgetary issues. It's a budget consultation, so I guess the sole intent is to look at things that has spending implications or budgetary implications. The Public Service Union was able to discuss a number of issues that we think are quite pertinent and that may have implications for the budget, mainly financial implications. So one of the things that we looked at was the allowances. And we made the point that these allowances were last negotiated in 2005. And we know members have been asking us about these allowances. We have been putting them forward. We put them forward last year. We had discussions, informal conversation with the Minister of Finance about those allowances early this year. And we resubmitted them. I must say that, and I'm going to mention that the police have also submitted allowances for negotiations and have completed their negotiations with respect to their allowances. The Public Service Union, on behalf of public servants, also submitted for a review of the allowances, which were last reviewed, as I mentioned, in 2005. And to this date, we have not had a discussion on our submission. So, of course, we have the view that, everything has to be done in fairness and without any bias and very balance. But the union was promised, the Prime Minister promised, along with the Director General of Finance and Planning, Mr. Jackson, who was present there, promised that they will look at the list that we have sent. Hopefully, it's a comprehensive list of most allowances within the public service. They said they will look at the list and we should be having some negotiations on what we submitted. The understanding from listening to the Prime Minister was that there may be some allowances that may have perhaps serious cost implications that they may not be able to address at this particular moment. So even while our expectation, based on what was said, that even when we sit down to look at the allowances, they may not necessarily be reviewing all of the allowances. And that is a matter of cost. What is the relative cost of different things that we have put forward? So we are looking forward to having discussions on these allowances before budget, because whatever is done must be budgeted for. So that was done. We also raised the issue with respect to the Occupational Safety and Health Act coming into force, noting, of course, that over the years, within the past 3 or so years, the government have been making provisions for certain positions to be filled that will assist in bringing different aspects of the act into force. The government did acknowledge that this is a fact, but they seem to be saying that the reason for those positions not being filled is not necessarily because of a lack of action from the political directorate. It may be administrative. But the understanding is that every effort will be made this year or next year, 2025, to fill those positions so that the different segment of the act, I think the intention is not to bring the entire act into force at the same time, but to bring different portions of it, make different portions of it effective. And if those posts are filled, then that will aid in having the phased implementation of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Remember, this act was passed in 2017, and in 2024, this particular time, it is still not in force. No aspect of it is in force. So that is something of very pressing for workers in the country, not just for the union alone, but for workers in the country to have this act that protects workers on the job being implemented or being enforced. We also raise the issue of cost of living because, we know prices are up, And we would have heard the Prime Minister mention at budget, at independence speech, one method that he thinks can be used to mitigate the high costs and prices. We don't know how that is going to work out. We ask about that. I'm not too optimistic with respect to that. And that is some price gouging policy or whatever it is. He seems to think that it can be done, but the union is not really, has not been sold on that idea. There are many other things that can be done to mitigate the high cost of living. The discussions with respect to that, in my view, were not as fruitful or productive as I would have expected. But nevertheless, we would have raised that as a concern for workers in the country. We inquired about the status of the remaining reforms for the NIS. I think the Minister of Finance said that owing to the disasters that we would have experienced, the country would have experienced in 2024, more or less their hands were kind of filled, and therefore, the remaining reforms were not really a priority per se, because there are so many other issues to be addressed surrounding natural disasters. And it is hoped that again in 2025, some of those reforms will be addressed. We were speaking specifically with respect to not just the NIS reforms, but the public service pension reforms. And it's important for us to have public service pension reform, or the reform of the public service pension system. We would have made submissions, that is, the Public Service Union, Teachers Union, and the Police Welfare Association would have made submissions jointly on recommendations that we think, that is our recommendation with respect to the reform of both the NIS and the public service pension. So we expect to have deliberations on those. We are expected to have that done in 2024, and nothing was done, as I have said, given the reasons given by the government. One of the burning issue that have been raised by workers regarding this pension reform is that there's no, all the public servants qualify for a pension after 10 years. They qualify for a pension after 10 years if they hold a pensionable position. So after 10 years, you qualify for a pension. But you can only get that pension if you work within the public service and retire after working within the public service. That is to say, if you resign, even though you qualify for a public service pension after 10 years, and you resign after 20 years, you don't get a pension. You lose it all. So you have to stay in the service up until retirement age, whether it's all retirement age or the full retirement age. Now, we don't think that is fair. And one of the comparisons that we can make is that parliamentarians, they get a pension after 2 terms in office, and they don't lose that pension. And 2 terms is equivalent, more or less equivalent to 10 years, 9.5 years, whatever. They lost, I think, 9.5 years. But they don't lose that pension. Once they have been qualified for it, once they have qualified for that pension, it's theirs. So even if they do not go back for a 3rd term of office and they decide they have had enough of that, the pension isn't lost. They still get their pension. So there ought to be some fairness. I mean, public servants have to work 33 and a third years or to get full pension off, and a lot of, a long number of years. And it's unfair that if you have done 25, even 30 years, and somehow you have to leave the service, you actually lose all of that. We want to have all of those matters addressed. So the reform of the public service pension is important. We also raised this very vexing issue regarding the workers within the public service who are not pensionable. And we raise it in relation to their NIS. Um, the fact that they retire at 60 and the NIS is due at 65. And so there's this 5-year period in which they have no income. And we give as an example at that meeting, as an example, someone from Braxa. So that's not only the public services workers throughout the country, someone from Braxa who is retiring at 60 and went to check on their pension at NIS and was told that if they take it now, upon retirement at 60, they're going to lose 40%. And when he looked at what he was losing, he was really left with nothing. Because it's actually, you even after you have done up to 36, 37 years, you're actually getting nothing really more than 50% of your salary as a pension from NIS. But if you're getting 50% of your salary as a pension and you're losing 40% of that, it means that you're only left with 10%. So it's an impossible case. And this is the challenge that we have with the NIS. So there's a policy within government that has been extended to the statutory bodies, where they are allowed to work up until the time that the NIS kicks in, so they are given an extra 5 years, but it's not mandated by law. It is at the whims and fancy of whomever. So, for example, Bonds Bonavie was making the point that at Central Water and Sewage Authority, a number of workers who have reached retirement age were being retired, and their pension, their NIS pension, doesn't become due until they are 65. So they were being retired at 60. And that was a problem. And the other problem with that, which is, as an aside, is all of these workers who are retiring at 60, let's say from CWSA, they have knowledge of the job. And I could understand that a manager will retire workers who have skill knowledge that is valued by the company,
Yes, of experience.
that allow them to maintain, their high level of performance, because they are basically the only one in the industry, so they're not competing with somebody else, but they allow them to operate at a very high level. And when they have retired them, they have to bring them back on contract. Now, it's as we just say, it's management 101, that you value knowledge is valued, and knowledge is extremely important for any entity. So that is one of the notwithstanding the financial challenge for the workers who are being retired, the company also have to understand that they are losing their knowledge base if there's no transfer of knowledge to younger ones, because younger ones really may not be able to perform skillfully at the level of the senior person that are going. So it makes sense for them to hold them up until that retirement age, when at 65, if they want to stay that long when they get their NIS. So you help a social situation as well as you actually helping the company. Within the public service, that may not be the case. Now the government have a policy some cabinet instructions memo that the workers should be given an extension up until a time when they get their when they are due their NIS pension. But the problem with that, as we stated at the meeting, is one of dignity. It means that every year, so if you retire at 60 and your pension is due at 65 from the NIS, you have to ask for an extension for 1 year. You're not asking for 2 and 3 and 4 years. They do it year by year. And then after the 1 year, you have to come back and you have to ask again. You know, it robs you of your dignity. It is an assault on the dignity of workers. It is as if you are really begging. And that ought not to be the case. And we say, listen, the retirement age should be legislated. And all members of the other unions who were there was of that same view. It will take care of this problem even within the statutory bodies, the problem even within the private sector, even though there are private sector companies who are allowing the workers to work up on that time. Of course, the Prime Minister raised the issue. He's not opposed to it, but he raised this issue that it doesn't necessarily apply to everybody. So Mr. Jackson would have said, well, if you have, what is the example that he gave about these VINLEC? If you have a 64-year, you can't have a 64-year-old man climbing a pole. And at the time I didn't really think much about it. But then thinking about it afterwards, that shouldn't even be an issue, because as a company, you have different jobs and different positions for people to do. So even these workers, you have not done an assessment to say these workers could be assigned to different roles and responsibilities.
And they could conduct training and so forth.
Right. And the same thing can happen within the police force. I mean, when you look at what obtains internationally, the people, most persons are working up until 65 plus. In Barbados, the retirement age is 67. So that is not an excuse for not correcting this gross problem. It's I don't even know how you describe it, but it is a problem for workers in the country. It's not a problem for the public servants alone. It's a problem for all workers in the country. You are reforming the NIS and you're creating hardships for the workers. I went as far as describing what you're paying to NIS as a tax. I say, all of these are taxes. And the government would have, the last budget would have lowered the tax threshold to give people a bit more money, which is very good. And you had a salary increase at your minimum wage. And I said, but look at what you had, a social tax. Well, of course, there's the disagreement that it's a social tax, social security tax. It's a pension that you're storing. But you're not storing the pension when you're making it very difficult for me to get that same pension. That's the problem. If it's my pension and I'm putting it there, I should get it whenever I want it. So I retire at 60, but you're moving the goalpost all the time. And I don't have a choice in not paying it. It's legislated. So it's really come like a tax anyway. And there are a lot of issues surrounding that whole NIS, that arrangement. Because if you happen to die before getting your NIS and you don't have children who are in school, or a spouse who is able or who is not getting or not entitled to another NIS pension, etc., everything is lost. If it's yours, it should go to the persons who control your estate, the people who are the inheritors of whatever assets you may have. You have left behind. That doesn't happen. So it's not really a bona fide pension you're paying into. It's something that is legislated by government and across the globe, even in England and those places. It's called a social tax anyway. So this issue with NIS is a burning issue that is affecting something that was supposed to make workers' life upon retirement easier, more livable, more comfortable, is really making their lives more difficult. And I think there needs to be another look at this whole NIS issue. There has to be another look at that because it's a social security but initiative, but it's not designed to help the poor and the downtrodden or the marginalized. 85%, and we made the point 85%, and the Prime Minister said that, yeah, that is true. The majority of persons, 85% or more, who pay into NIS only have one pension, which is NIS pension. And God, imagine that 60, and they tell you that you have to go home. And for 5 years, you have nothing. You don't dare go and take it because you're left with absolutely nothing. You're paying so much money over the years, and when you look, you're hardly getting anything out of it. The stress alone will kill you before you even reach 65. That is the reality.
And I could recall when they were doing the consultation, and persons might have looked at, even if some persons left at 60, and they was casually saying actually that they could pick up another job. But the way it is in St. Vincent, the young people them can't even find work. And some of them at that age, they have so many medical issues that comes along with getting down in age, that the kind of work that is out there for them to do, they can't even go into those jobs. Many of them you would see go into things like, which is remarkable by itself, security guards and so forth. And at that age, you were working those kind of hours, trying to make ends meet, that in itself too. So it's a whole other set of stuff attached to them being home there, can't find jobs, can't perform in certain jobs, competing with the young persons who can't find work. So it's a lot.
Last time we met with the IMF, Sheldon, I think, I don't know if you were there. You probably were there. When they were talking about the retirement age, and they were asking the question, but you have the lowest retirement age within the region. How is it that, and their push was the alignment of the retirement age with the NIS age.
Mm-hmm.
They were pushing for that. They said that's what needs to happen to bridge that gap. And that is not what is happening. And these are the kind of things, that Vincentians, listen, these are the kind of issues that you need to consider when you are dealing with an election and your life is on the line. It is your livelihood. Your economic status is on the line. These are the kind of things you have to consider. I don't understand how we just, I'm not digressing per se, but I'm just linking it. I don't understand how we just vote for voting's sake without looking at the pertinent issues that affect our lives and affect our lives seriously. We just saw that election. That was the mother of all elections in the States. And the exit polls basically said one of the major issues was cost of living and the economy. So people cry loud, oh my God, how could they have elected Trump? But people were not necessarily looking at who the person is. They were looking at how it is affecting them. Even at the time when the American economy was making the strongest recovery in the entire world. But the recovery of the economy did not trickle down, have not yet trickled down to the ordinary person so that they can feel that relief in their pockets when they go to the supermarkets or to the stores. And so they say, when the Democrats say the economy is strong, yeah, but I ain't feeling it. And they voted overwhelmingly based on that. Now, in St. Vincent, and that's the point I'm making. We have struggles, and this NIS issue is a serious issue. When I listen to that guy 3 weeks ago who has hit 60 and wants to leave. The man wants to leave. But the man look at what he's getting, and it creates great stress for him. He can't believe that's what he's getting. He can't believe that he's going to lose 40%. Mm-hmm. The last reforms that were done, that was a recommendation that was made by the actuary, supported by the government, opposed by the unions that represent the working class. And the government went ahead and implemented that. I want us to understand and listeners to understand the implications for decisions that are made by those in authority. The implications, the consequences that it has, those decisions will have on our lives and our livelihoods. And so we have to take governance in the country very seriously. I don't think it's people need to move away from this idea of being slavish to a particular political party and look at the issues that is going to impact your life year go, year come over a 5-year period. This NICC is a serious issue. And responsible government should look at tackling it in a responsible way with respect to the workers or the working class who are being so affected. The reluctance to align the retirement age, I do not understand why that has not happened. I just don't understand it. I don't understand what is the reasoning behind it. What is the rationale behind it. It is a selfish decision not to align it because it is affecting so many people are hurting by this. And yet these people, these politicians, these current in government just go on as if it's a non-issue. So yeah, I'm passionate about this. I've taken up a lot of time. I shouldn't watch it, but it's something that is yeah, I know. Like, it's something that is, yeah, that is very dear to my heart because so many persons are affected by it. And the persons who are mainly affected are the persons who are lower salaried workers, the persons who are already struggling. Mm. Yeah. But so those were the issues that we raised with the government. And that's basically the result of what they were saying.
Okay, thank you, Brother President, for that overview. So for some of you listeners who did not have the opportunity to listen to all of our programs, you will now have the opportunity to actually get some of that information that you might have lost. So one very disheartening matter that is still hanging in limbo, that is a very sensitive issue to workers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it has to do with the vaccine mandate, which was awarded in favor of the dismissed workers in March of 2023 by Justice Esco Henry. And the government actually appealed that ruling, which was, I think, was May of this year. And to date, we have not received a response from the justices on that matter. So that is another troubling issue that we are seeing being pushed back, and we are getting no response from the courts in this regard. So I'm not sure if our president and our GS want to share their views in respect of how this is actually continue to affect our dismissed workers who have been long awaiting to get their justice regarding this issue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I met. Well, I'm always meeting those, not necessarily those from our union only, but you would talk to the police and the teachers. And I met a police officer. Well, I still refer to him as a police officer. He has been selling, I think, phone cards, trying to make ends meet. for the longest while, and he asked the question, what's happening with the case, and when he is going to get back his job, because things, I guess, has not been as bright as they used to be when he was employed, and in terms of the returns from doing whatever he is doing is not that great, but he has to do it because he really don't have a choice. And that is the cry of a lot of persons who would have lost, who have been fired. Well, the government said they didn't
Have
fire
been
anybody, but we
have
know
been
that they were
dismissed.
dismissed, fired, however they want to put it. The persons had no job. Um, you did mention it's a sensitive issue. It's an issue that get a lot of persons very emotional.
Yes.
Because you wake up one day, you had 20 something years, and you wake up one day and you have no job, and not only you have no job, you have no benefit, or everything just taken from you, and you're wondering what is the next step. You have children in school, you may have health issues, you have mortgage. I remember when one of our members, the bank was threatening to sell, and they didn't know where to turn. And at the time when Justice Henry delivered her judgment, persons felt like, okay, well, they had a little bit of hope, and
Yes.
there was a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, because, okay, I'm gonna be reinstated. Well, reinstated, get back my
Right.
benefits, get back my job, and get on with my life. And then you were further traumatized when the government decided, well, listen, we don't believe one judge, we don't believe the judge is wrong. Let us further punish or make your own people. And these are not foreigners that came in. These are your own people that you say that you love and you care for.
They used to have a saying, they rubbing salt in the wound.
Right. I am down already on the
Yeah.
ground, and you're just ponging me down more, as if I didn't suffer enough for the year plus I was waiting for the judgment. And when it came and I thought, okay, well, finally we have some hope and we can get on with life, the government decided to further punish its own people.
And the saddening thing also is when that call was made for persons to reapply, and many of them did, and they were not offered back a position. So that in itself too, like, give them some sense of hope. Okay,
Right.
until even the appeal, until that time comes, at least I would still, be in a
Have
job.
something. And I remember
But
we did right to ask,
yeah,
what were the grounds, what were the logistics in terms of you
exactly.
taking back persons. I don't think we ever got any response from Service Commission. Tell us,
No,
you're
and
asking
that in
persons to
itself,
reapply, but what does that mean for them? Are they going to be starting at the salary where they left? Are they going to be getting their benefits outlined to us? What
they were
that
off.
meant at the time?
Some of them were offered nothing. They weren't given the opportunity to fill back the post at the or reapply and fill a job at the new
Exactly.
post.
So persons are still,
Yeah.
and the sad thing about it is that so many persons have called on the government, did call on the
Reconsider.
government to reconsider. Persons internally and externally would have said to the government, look, maybe at the time when you made the decision, okay, maybe you thought that was the best thing to do at the time. But we at this junction now. It's time for you to relook. It's time for you to reconsider. Persons are suffering. And it's that you're not getting that concept. Persons are suffering. Persons can't pay their bills. You know what it is to have some people, children had to drop out of university. You have a roof over your head, and the bank is telling you, if you don't pay next week, we're taking your house. You know that what kind of stress that could just send anybody over the edge. And you're saying to a government, people have suffered. I think they've suffered enough. It's time for you to reconsider what you're doing. And if it's like things are falling on deaf ears,
Yep.
and the ministers in cabinet, the ministers of cabinet, the persons who you think or you thought would have,
Yeah, try
be
and
logical
steady.
and
Yeah,
think critical and say, okay, listen, I think we have
erred in this
we did it.
decision. Yeah,
So let's see how we can correct the historical wrong. The PM
right.
like to use that.
Yeah,
We
but
were hoping that by now, this is December of 2024, that historical wrong would have been corrected a
right.
long time ago.
So we have the government, well, deciding to appeal, but yet again we have the court doing nothing about it. Like there's no urgency in getting this thing dealt with.
After we, and I remember when I don't know if it was a sham or what, and they were talking about they wanted this thing to be, you know,
Yeah, it's long overdue.
expedited
Yeah,
and get it over
Mhm.
with and let's see. But look at the amount of time that has passed since then, and I'm not hearing anything about from their end to say, okay, the court has is taking too long to
and the
give a
reason
judgment.
why they're not saying anything.
So to me, you're quite comfortable and happy with the court taking forever while the persons continue to suffer.
And who did the justices we had who dealt with that? Eddie Ventos, Jihad Wallbank, and Paul Webster, and that was in Antigua. So these persons themselves, they don't feel that they need to get this thing dealt with. They don't see the impact of them having this thing prolonged and have workers wondering what next. So they themselves too, you wonder are they thinking?
But the government, well,
You could say it's
I
out of
would
the
say the
government's hands
government.
now, you know.
The Minister of Health, well, the government, yes. As far as I know, have not recanted what the law, or what's the word?
Yeah, it's still in effect.
It's still in effect.
Yeah, it's not been repealed.
Repealed, right? So you enforce the law because you said you had a public health emergency at the time. You're
Has
saying
been lifted. Yeah,
orally
no.
that okay, there's none, but you still have not repealed the piece of legislation. I have known persons within recent time um who still have been asked for if they have been vaccinated to get whether it is permanent or short-term job in the Ministry of Health. But yet the PM is saying that there's none. But
Somebody will get that
you
memo.
have not repealed it publicly to say you were quick enough to bring it. You were quick enough when persons were asleep,
Exactly.
but now it's time for you to repeal it. There's no urgency in doing that. And it have if a piece of legislation have not been repealed, how could you not say it's not it doesn't exist? So I don't understand. There was an urgency. You think, okay, you had to do it in the middle of the night when persons were sleeping. But now you're saying one thing orally, but when it comes to actually having a piece of document that's saying that this law has been repealed, it's not evident. And on top of that, if you're saying, well, if this judgment doesn't favor us or doesn't go in our favor, we're willing
We
to
have
go
to,
all the
yeah.
way. How much more suffering can one set of people take? But these are the same public servants that you say you love every time you have
Yep.
public service week. You love them and you want the best for them and all of that, and they must do of the but you love is an action word. It
And
doesn't you can't just come and say you love me, you care. But when it comes to actually doing it or putting the action where your mouth is, you can't do it.
and as we stated before, the majority of these workers were women,
Women.
single
Mm-hmm.
mothers, and all. So you have to consider all of those things. I mean, who are you trying to pressure? Are you pressuring the women who have like so many children that they have to take with? It have broken up families to where put so much stress
Stress.
on people that families just fall apart. Some of them left because they refuse the other party think, okay, you're gonna not take the vaccine, you don't have anything coming in now. So why should I stay in a relationship? I should just move on and go and look
So
for somebody, you know?
who is
And
concerned about that?
exactly. So all of these things as a spill off of
Mhm.
this mandate
Mhm.
that has affected persons in so many different ways. And the insensitivity of the persons in authority is unconscionable. I don't understand
I
it.
really don't.
You know, the president have been very
I saw people
quiet.
took pleasure in calling persons to say
Oh
don't go to the
yeah.
government work. Like how? No empathy, no such just land like how,
Have we forgotten, as Vince
Yeah, bright
mentioned, what
colors.
how this affect? I mean, everybody knows somebody who was affected by this mandate. So how could we sit down another Christmas? It was around Christmas time,
yes, yes.
you know, and these people are still in no position to really, you know,
There's some
find
persons
back
who are still
stable
catching,
grounds.
according to what
Yeah,
people catching the and
still.
doing odd jobs, doing, just to keep themselves afloat, trying to stay positive, getting the support from the churches and so forth, just so that they don't go into depression.
Might need to write the appeal court.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
the my view my view on it as it relates to the appeal judges on the court. Um, I really understand why how they could have. It's almost a year,
And the court was here a
right?
couple months back.
So this matter doesn't seem to be one of great priority for the appeal judges who heard this particular case, and it is quite unfortunate and sad that in the Caribbean, among our black brothers and sisters, that you have judges who, in making decisions, seems to have the consideration for the impact. Their failure to issue a judgment, the impact on people's lives. That simple fact is quite troubling. And you see, when you a few years ago you had this big push for a move to the CCJ, and people kept saying that they rather hold on to the Privy Council because of the feeling, the perception that you will get justice, or your chance at succeeding, your chance of being of your matter being handled expeditiously and fairly will be had at that particular court. This is the appeals court. And when you see a judgment that is affecting hundreds of families and their livelihoods, their extended family, when you see a decision that has implications for so many people, and it's taken a year for that judgment to be returned, it really does not give much confidence in the justice system at times. I know that there are times when, based on who the judge is, you have speedy judgments, you have matters being dealt with expeditiously. There are other times when the decisions are such that it doesn't encourage one to have confidence in our own people to adjudicate in a timely and expeditious manner on very important issues that are affecting the very lives and livelihood of hundreds of Caribbean people. So I don't know. I have said, and I have been thinking about this within recent times. I was in church on Sunday and this matter was on my mind, and I said maybe, my brother was actually preaching a sermon, and I said maybe Vincentians home and abroad, maybe this time that we together collectively bombard the throne of grace and put this matter before God, because we just don't understand what is happening. And I am convinced that giving Justice Henry's ruling on so many different points, it is almost impossible for us, or for the workers, when I say us, the union and the workers, to lose this case. Even on one matter of abandonment of job, even if all of the others are even if you lose all of the other points, but there's point on abandonment of job, which basically say that nobody abandoned their job, you have won the case. So why is it being held up that long? And our Caribbean tourists need to understand that they're from a community that historically has been supportive of each other. The Caribbean people, the people in St. Vincent, St. Lucia are more family oriented and in touch with one another, or they used to be. They still are. Young people are moving away from that. I'm not sure. But you get that family feeling, that concern, that caring. And these jurists, of course, come out of that particular setting. So in dealing with this matter, as I've said, lives are being affected. Lives have been affected and continue to be affected. And perhaps only God at this particular time can move them to do what is right, and to deliver a fair, just, and honest judgment for the people who are so affected. It is time enough. A year has literally gone. The court is going on, the city court is going on holiday just now for December. How could these folks, how could these jurists who make these decisions, knowing that they're spending a wonderful Christmas with their family and people are suffering and cannot have that same experience? But it's, don't we care for one another, and in the particular season that we are in, when the God of love demonstrated that love when he sent his only son who was born, and during this particular time, sent his son to earth, born of a Virgin Mary. The majority of Caribbean people celebrate Christmas in that particular light, with Christmas being Christ being at the center of it. That's our tradition, that's our upbringing. And it's supposed to be a time of caring and a time of sharing, but people are suffering. People are suffering. And while we cannot allow the government to go scot-free on this matter, because the longer it stays out there, the more Vincentians need to be reminded of the cruelty of this act. Nowhere in the history of St. Vincent have so many lives financially been destroyed. This pales in comparison to or the 79 tear gas pales in comparison to this. At the stroke of a pen, hundreds of workers and their family were made to suffer. at the stroke of a pen. And we must all remember this: at the stroke of a pen, hundreds of families and their families were made to suffer. Shall I mention? At the time, we knew of people who had to be pulled out of university, and the impact is far and wide. We seem not to care how these people are making a living, how they survive, what have they done, how have their children survived. And even though people try to, there's the attempt for people to get back their job, that was like climbing a mountain. It was not all truthful. And you get back your job and you were told, many of them were told that they're starting from scratch.
Exactly.
How could that be fair? And the judgment by Esco Henry would have addressed all of that. You never lost your pension, never lost anything. It is as if you never left the job. So the ruling from the appeal judge is extremely important in every way. And those judges need to be more conscientious, and I pray that God will touch their heart. If they have a heart of stone, it will be made soft. If they have a resistive heart, it will be made more malleable so that they can listen. When they close their eyes, they can hear the cry of the people who are suffering because of their lack of action in delivering a ruling after almost an entire year. Something
It's already a year
Vincentians.
since
Mhm.
Justice Henry ruled. And we're almost 8 months going in
Yeah,
for the
Vincentians
appeal.
ought not to forget this. People, a lot of people talking, oh, election. Well, you can have elections, that's next year or whenever. But for me, this matter is even much more important. This matter is much more important. This is one of the matters of greatest priorities that needs to be addressed. People continue to suffer. People continue to suffer, and we all need to bear these people up in prayer. We all need to take these judges to God so that only God can soften their hearts. After all, Pharaoh's heart was as tough can be, but Pharaoh's heart was eventually softened till he let the children of Israel go.
So there's still hope.
So their hearts can be softened by the one true God. And maybe that has to be our prayer for this season, that the hearts of these judges will be touched so that they will, even as they sleep, in their dream, they will see the suffering of these people and be mindful that they have failed to deliver what they should be delivering. That is my
Your Christmas
prayer for this
prayer.
particular, that is my prayer, because I don't understand how something could be dragged on for so long. And the government is complicit in the suffering because they're the ones who appeal it.
Yeah.
So they're complicit in the suffering. Antigua just allowed their Antigua didn't go to that extent. We're the only country in the Caribbean that have gone to that extent. Where is the care and the concern for our people?
Exactly.
Only country in the Caribbean. Antigua followed workers and then took them back on. In fact, they didn't even lose anything because they eventually got back the lost wages. But we went to the extent to create a lot, to fire people. people who were terrified of what was going to happen to their health if they actually took a vaccine. People who are concerned with the safety of the vaccine. And they have all rights to the choice. They have bodily integrity. Your choice to inject yourself with whatever, or allow certain things to enter your body. That's a choice. If in taking that decision you suffer the consequences, it's your responsibility. But when it is imposed on you, when it is forced upon you, it's a whole different ball game, and people have suffered also. People who did not want to be persecuted financially complied, and they suffered also.
And a lot of persons took it last minute,
Yeah,
like on
there's a
the
lot.
very day,
Mhm.
because it was a struggle between whether or not they should, whether they had health complaints or they just own personal belief.
So this
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
because to date, when you hear some persons who actually took it, and when you hear them speak, they would say it's because they had no choice.
Yeah, they were between a rock
But
and a hard place, so
exactly, and
they
just
just close their eyes, roll up the sleeve, and take it, and just hope
yeah. And the sad thing
for the
is,
best.
when you hearing all these adverse effects that are now coming forward, you have to wonder when if it's gonna happen to me, if some time in the future tomorrow I'm going to be affected by this decision that I was forced to actually make.
Mhm.
So that in itself is a psychological thing that people are dealing with due to the mandate. Up to today, I heard somebody was telling me that they had no choice but to take it
Yep.
because they were drawing my attention to their husband losing their job, and they had to make that hard decision just to, keep the family afloat. So
yeah,
yes, we need to. This is something that coming into the new year we would have at the forefront of our discussion. And I mean, some people might say writing and so forth doesn't do it, but we need to at least wake up these judges. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but
I don't know if you can send another
I don't know if we
send
could.
Maybe
another
Jumbo
thing.
them or us.
No, we the
We
citizens.
yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know.
Need
Maybe
to
we need to
remind
have a
them
conversation with the
of their
bar,
responsibility.
with
The
Yeah.
Bar
Zeta,
Association
to see
president.
if it can be sent through
To
the bar
them.
association and make an
Yeah, but
appeal
we
to
need to
them.
do something. I mean, Vincent need not to forget, because I believe that many persons probably don't even think and wonder, okay, what became of these dismissed workers? How they are doing? What are they doing? And so forth. So we have, okay, so we should actually try and go into some more of the topics that we actually um, had on the program for the year. And two topics I think that is very worthwhile looking back at this particular time of the year. One that has to do with the uncontrollable crime that we are facing here in St. Vincent, and also cost of living. Um, those are two things that around this time we see a lot of pickpockets and burglaries, robberies, all these things, in addition to the murders and so forth that we are having throughout their country. And cost of living, a lot of when you go in the supermarkets now, you would see things like ham and so forth. The price that you are seeing compared to last year, it makes you wonder, because persons were reluctant to buy salt last year, but no,
Well, it's a
the
good thing. They
alternative.
really don't need the ham.
Yeah, but the thing is, they were
But they
saying,
don't
okay,
really need the
fine,
ham, so I don't really mind the
right. They were
ham
The body don't
saying,
need
prices.
the ham, is it?
No, so I don't really. That's I talking
The salt
right,
personally.
ham?
Eh?
right,
The
right,
salt
Whether
ham?
because
salt or frozen, I don't.
most
That's me
persons,
personally. So even though if it's that,
right,
it's best. It's better for the health system
right, but most
that I don't
persons
eat
would
the
have
ham.
gravitated to,
Even the
okay,
frozen ham?
Yeah, but the frozen ham is also salt.
right. But the thing is, what we are seeing now with the
So
when you compare the prices with the frozen and the salt, what's we want into the frozen because of the price. because some of them say around Christmas time they want a little salt
Would they
ham.
buy
Some
a
of
ham
them,
sandwich, some and just taste it? They don't need
right?
the whole
Yeah,
ham.
boy, yeah, fella, yeah.
But
But they have in it. It just mean you don't have the whole ham in the fridge to eat it from bone to bone.
right, but in respect of the prices, the frozen hams are just as expensive as the
Mhm.
salt ham now. You went in the supermarket, everything is 80 and above. If you're lucky to find 70, if
You
you're
used to buy a
lucky,
small, get one for like 40
40
something
something
dollars.
Yeah, 40
dollars.
something.
And that
Second
was
like,
like 2 years ago now. That isn't the case.
you
So
know,
it
that's
tells you
going to be a sacrifice for the poor man.
that's it.
The
You might
poor
have
man
to
have.
buy one and
Poor
split
man,
it
the poor man,
between three
the poor man
persons.
want a hamburger.
Yeah, nobody do it.
They're going to be a
This,
sacrifice.
you see, Christmas without ham is not Christmas.
Oh,
You know, some persons,
okay.
that's the
You can't have
reality.
Christmas and don't have ham in your house.
Why not?
Yeah?
You know,
Then it's not Christmas.
What it is?
yeah.
Yeah, you have to have ginger beer, you have to have sorrel beer, you know? You have to have all them kind of things. It's a tradition, it's our culture. Embedded in us.
Okay.
Right.
Can't change all that. It used to be salt and first time, you know.
Yeah, but a lot of person was going to the frozen ham
But
as
with
the
so many
alternative.
hypertensive and diabetes in the country, they switch to frozen ham.
Which
Yeah.
really doesn't change the price of eggs, in my view.
No, for conscience just give make them feel better.
Yeah, but it doesn't really help. I
You
mean,
know,
it make you feel like okay, you can eat
eat a
as
bit
much
more.
as, but doesn't
Yeah.
really change the price of egg.
Yeah, but that the prices that we are seeing now compared to last year, because even I heard person when they go into the supermarket to buy the butter to bake the little cake, and so the price is like almost twice as what they
I went
had
into
it last
Massy. When I
year.
went into Massy, I think it's yesterday or today, and they have black cake for I think it's 75 and 80 something dollars. And I'm like, one little cake, like
The
you can't even
ingredients,
cut two slices good out of it.
The
Yeah,
ingredients.
So I
yeah.
said, no, no, no. I mean, who want to buy it can buy it, but I will not be buying no cake.
You mean a small one?
Whether small, big, or in between.
A small one for much?
$80.
Yeah, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
No, everything gone up, everything gone
Come
up.
on.
Yeah, so
I think sometimes this is just my view. Some people really rub it in and push it and say, okay, well, price have gone up. And sometimes the cake itself, when you eat it, you're trying to figure out
If they want the money.
if they want the money. So they stretch the ingredients, they make the plenty cake, but they want to charge you the same price.
well, that is it.
So when you see next week or week after next week, eggs reach a $50 a flat.
I never bought it. They asked me that, told me that last year, and I told them keep the eggs. I'm not buying any egg for that price.
Eh,
I will not be buying any flat of egg for $50. I'm very sorry.
So it's
I will do
unfortunate,
it without the egg.
unfortunate that the prime minister wasn't able to actually put in place that's something that controls
The price
price
gouging.
gouging at around this time.
Yeah, because
You
a
know,
lot of
because it's ridiculous.
those businesses just keep pushing the price at
Yeah.
all. The cost just
Because the
pushing it.
demand for the stuff are so high that people's gonna buy it. Even if it's last minute, they decide to buy it, they're gonna buy it. Just to say
Well,
that
I
I
ain't
had
buying
this
it.
and had that
Mm.
for the holiday. You know, so we really need, I mean, cost of
I mean,
living.
because while we want to say cost of living is high and the businesses keep pushing the high cost on us the consumers, we also have to say to the public, our members, be mindful too. Yes, you want to enjoy Christmas and have a good time, but at the same time, just be mindful and try to budget in a way that it doesn't affect you severely in January. Well,
Well,
so
as
to
I say,
speak.
person had to come together and buy one ham,
And
get a little
split it up so
piece,
you can buy one ham and
get
split up
one.
into three.
Yes.
no, I need a hold on for myself. I'm sorry.
And I didn't say you.
Even if I eat it, I want to see it. Just see it alone.
Yeah.
So people have to be
Everything.
wise in terms of how they spend. You can merge together and buy a ham with
Buy a
somebody
ham.
else and cut it in half.
It
I
would
would.
definitely require
I
people
can't afford a
persons
ham
doing that.
anyway. Like,
No, because
You
I
understand?
mean,
So at least
and
because every
yeah,
time you go, it's not even cents that is added on. It's a dollar and up and dollar
that
and
is
change
true.
and $2 and $3. So is it really that the cost has increased or just the people just decide, okay, it's high in demand now and
Yeah,
I would just
that's
bring it
it.
up?
That's it.
Because the
So,
same
Well,
egg,
yeah, your
when December is
demand
gone and
goes back
January,
down to the.
the
yeah.
egg and they begging you, please buy the egg from them. So the cost really have to go up?
So
I
based
don't
on,
think so.
so it's
So
actually based on the
yeah.
tradition,
So we have to
the
appeal
season.
to well, the person selling the produce as well.
Yeah.
You know, the ginger and the sorrel is, well, the sorrel
Well,
is
ginger price
normally,
high
yeah, the
Yeah,
sorrel
for
is
a
but
while
okay,
now.
but
you see the ginger price, and you see those things, and I was raised at that meeting that we had there, because you heard the government giving so much
To
assistance
the
to farmers,
farmers.
yeah,
So
so
some of them
much
get assistance, they
assistance,
get
and
money
yet
concession,
everything,
they get this, they get manual and so forth. But
fertilizer,
they
yeah,
still send down the cost to
produce.
us.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh!
They still giving us the high cost, and their reason would be, oh, everything gone up.
Mhm.
Everything gone up, yes, yes, but you're getting assistance.
exactly.
So you're taking the assistance, but you're still giving me the high cost. So you win either way
Mhm.
all the time.
And as somebody was saying today, at the end of the day, they would take home all the produce that they have these high prices and then not carry them
Yes.
down, and they're going home to
No.
spoil.
Some persons
You
would
know,
refuse. Their bananas
they
could be
rather
spoiling.
see
They
the
will
spoil
not drop
than
their
to drop the
prices.
price. It's crazy.
Which is what I do understand. You know, you have to.
Maybe because they realize they're not really losing, because
Well, they
you
don't
would have
sell
gotten
enough
so
for the
much
day.
help that you and
Yeah.
you don't carry up the prices for the faucet so high that you can afford to carry home the rest to spoil. Because I don't see how you're gonna carry home the rest to spoil, rather than sell somebody and at least make back the money or a little bit
Yeah.
more. But you rather not sell it
Make
at the
something than
cost.
make nothing.
Yeah.
So our
So the cost of living gonna hit a lot of people for this Christmas,
yeah, and this
and
on January,
I don't know. And then
it's a
after
hard month.
that, because you're gonna spend more, it's a high demand season based on the. You see, you know what's interesting, during Christmas season, like internationally, prices go down.
Right,
Prices
because
seem to go
see the
down.
reason for the season.
Yeah, they are decreased because Christmas, and
You
you
want
got the
everybody to be
impression that
happy,
these are
yeah.
decreases when similar prices go up. I do understand. Prices go down, and then and then they go up in our neck of the woods. Um, I don't know, but people have to be very careful with respect to their spending.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't afford, but I know, I can't afford. I used to get a ham from my mother every Christmas. So, I ain't getting that again, so I ain't getting none.
You ain't losing either way.
No, I lose it. Because she's to make sure boil it out there, because she's hypertensive. So she makes sure when it's done, she soak it and then boil it a couple of days. So when it tastes it, you really taste it, you hardly taste any salt in it. You understand? So I used to really, go down and get my chunks until it's gone, and then the next one boil, and then more or less. So that is something that I'm going to miss. So I don't know if somebody could donate one.
Very lucky.
You buy your own ham and soak it and boil it.
Oh my god! Yeah,
But
we give it.
yeah, but we also have to be mindful about when you in Kingston and in these crowds, pickpockets and these sort of things. And that is something that you would find. I see people ball in Kingston when they move from one place to the other, and by the time they're pulling out, looking for purse and
Yeah, because
whatever, nothing
not
is
everybody
there.
come to shop.
Right.
Well, yeah, everybody come to shop,
So
but not
be
everybody come to
mindful,
shop with their own
don't,
money.
yeah, people just looking to see who spending and how they securing the money
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. So these things we have to be mindful of when we go out there. Don't expose yourself to these things, and also considering now persons trying to enjoy the Christmas, and many of them unemployed, so they might look for other means of getting money, to
But
spend.
then
And
people,
so we have to be careful when we're locking up our homes, burglaries and these things too. We have to be mindful of that, especially in the night morning time. So, and
When you're leaving home
yeah, when you're
early.
leaving home, you have breeze. So let's hope that they have a lot of patrols and so forth, police patrols, night
Well, the
morning
police,
area,
I mean, police, but police, they have limited human
resources,
resources to
yeah,
deal with all of that. So maybe it might have to be some community
community
efforts
work,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
I don't know how much of the
Community
community
efforts to do
watch,
it.
yeah, yeah,
groups and so forth they have
night
still,
morning, yeah,
Still
That's why I'm
active.
asking. I don't know.
They
I
used
know
to be
some
active.
areas used to
Yeah,
have
they
some and
really
everybody
used to
look
be
out for
we
each
active.
other
definitely would
and
need
so
that,
forth. But
yeah,
I don't know how many still active and going because we can't always, yes, the police is supposed to protect and so, but sometimes they're so limited in getting resources,
yeah,
transportation, and all of that. So they may not be everywhere. It's highly
right,
impossible. So maybe we might have to do.
Look
But
out for each
everybody
other.
just gets so selfish. I don't know.
But I was saying the things that
Um,
we the Caribbean people, that's how it used to
if
be.
that is going to be or if
I
it's
don't think
still
that's the
possible.
case anymore.
So maybe we need to go back there.
Not
You
really.
get one going
Generation changing.
in Camden Park,
There used to
Lomans.
be one at the, yeah, I know there was one down there, but those things, maybe they're not practical now. I don't know. People are so selfish to be able to think about themselves. They don't think about other people.
okay.
It's changing.
Yes, and talking
Yeah.
about people thinking about themselves, one thing that we discussed also was the quality public service. So along this time, we will be appealing to our public servants to, be a little more caring, a little more patient, and
Yes,
so
Serena.
forth when when we are dealing with the general public and providing a service. Um, let's not forget the reason for the season. And sometimes, I mean, a lot of people get frustrated, especially customs when you see people trying to get their barrels and so. But the same time that you are frustrated just having to deal with so many persons, the persons themselves, because the lines and so forth, they themselves are frustrated. So you have to kind of give and take at the same time. So we did speak about quality public service, and that is something that the union always advocates. um, Everybody isn't perfect, but we could always encourage that public servants, when you are employed within a public service, it's for you to provide a service. And with that, we have to be professional. Even in our down times, we have to present ourselves in a professional manner that doesn't affect the way that we approach persons and deliver that service. So customs, where else would we see are very, very busy at this time? The airport, because these people do have to work long hours as well, eh? And at the port. And please, we had instances where persons miss items at the port when their barrels and so come in. So workers at the ports, I don't know who the perpetrators are, and probably I don't know what security is in place, especially around this time, to protect persons' property. So that is something that we need to put out there for the authorities at the port to put certain things in place so that persons' property are secured. Because it's very disheartening when people carry home the barrel and they're expecting certain things.
And barley
And
ain't cheap.
exactly, and to find half of the products, well, not products, we just call it at Christmas. They have a special name when people send things from overseas for your Christmas time. I mean, the children look forward to the little sweets and chocolate and so forth. But everybody always looking forward to whatever is inside the barrel at Christmas, especially considering prices out there. So I don't know if anybody wanna add anything to quality public service around this time.
I
Yeah.
know with regards to I know a lot of persons tend to not want to visit the health facilities around
Oh,
Christmas
yes,
time.
that is important.
They don't. The
Because they
doctor,
want to
the,
They
the
eat,
will,
list,
because they
the,
want
yeah,
to
the,
eat, we don't
to be
want to
the
eat.
list is very short,
consistent, yeah, with
and the
their
doctors are not
health.
there very long, and they don't come. And then in January now, people are dying, so to speak, but they come with all sort of
Yeah.
complications after the fact. Just to remind persons that the facilities are still there
Mhm.
to offer you care, and persons have to be responsible. You know what needs to be done. I understand everybody wants to taste this and taste that, and you can taste to remind yourself
Moderation,
of how it used
please.
to taste or still taste.
Mm.
But it doesn't mean that you have to eat the whole cake. Everything must be done in
Moderation,
moderation,
yeah.
so that you can get the necessary care. Well, continuously. They don't even come for medication or anything. They just live, and they, according to those people who say, well, what happened, but we don't want persons to think like that. So the facilities are there and the service is still available.
Okay. Another thing that we touched base on was freedom of association. That is something that the union has been dealing with for some time now
Mhm.
with many employers, and hopefully for the new year we are hoping that um, we see employers have a more open, we say, open door
Mhm.
approach to the union. I mean, we are not confrontational. We are only
Well, there's a time and
protecting,
place for that.
right, protecting the rights of our workers, and of course to make the working relations between employer and employee a smooth one. So um an open door approach we are hoping for, in especially within the statutory
Yeah, particularly,
bodies,
what's the place? It's Tourism Authority.
authority, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't, we wrote the Tourism Authority more than a month now, just to come in and meet with the workers, have a conversation on pensions and IS and other issues relating to other labor issues or workers' rights. And you never get a response. You've never gotten a response from the head of that institution. And it's an unfortunate situation. It's really should not be what is happening, because as managers, is a freedom of association. People have a right to join the trade union, but sometimes you have hostility from the heads
Mhm.
of these organizations, hostility towards persons joining trade unions, and then the workers themselves become fearful. They have to sneak and hide and that sort of thing. We are a democratic country which is led by a labor government, and being a labor government, one would expect that there will be pro unionization of workers. So the heads of these institutions that are government institutions will be very open and encouraging of workers to join the union, because that's where their best interests can be addressed and cared for. And that's really how they should be. That should be one of the policies, or the behavior of a labor government, to encourage persons to join a union. In fact, the prime minister has always encouraged people to join a union. Oh, and if he is the head of the government and he is encouraging people to join a union, then those managers in these statutory bodies, maybe they haven't gotten the memos yet. And those who are resistant to the the trade union involvement with their workers or with the workers need to re-examine what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's a labor government, and the encouragement is there. So you should also have, take that directive from the head of the country.
And I don't think, I think how some Or some organizations or some supervisors or managers, they always look at it as the union um, fighting them or opposing everything that they're trying to do. But we really hope for the new year that they don't look at the union as the enemy, because the union helped to basically, in my view, keep you in check.
Yeah.
Because we should, both of us should have the workers' interests at heart, because you want the worker to be comfortable, to be well taken care of, and so that the worker can produce. And when the worker produce, then you benefit in terms of profits. And we want to make sure that the worker gets the same thing. So don't look at us as the enemy and always as if we're always fighting against each other. Embrace the opportunity so we can actually sit down and have social dialogue to see how best we can put things in place to help the workers and how they can progress and be happy and be productive individuals, so that we can all help to build the nation. So let's hope that 2025, that we would see more of this, that openness, that we can, just sit down and have meetings and discuss what next,
Some fruitful discussions.
rather than always look as if we are fighting you and you fighting us. And sometimes it's not even the case, and sometimes it's not even necessary. But if you understand our function, you would not be look as if you're always fighting against. And persons have to learn to remove that subjective thinking and personal, and have their personality injected into the whole situation, and look at the bigger picture that needs to be looked at. That everybody is entitled to an opinion and so forth, and the freedom of being part of. Let's look at things differently. Hopefully in 2020, in 2025, we're looking forward to big things. As was alluded to before, the PM would always say, join it, and not only just join, be actively involved.
Yes.
He himself know the significance of having trade unions, and the part that they play, the role that they play in nation building, and in terms of fighting for workers and so forth. So what is the problem with the rest? I'm not quite sure why they're very slow in catching on.
I see some memo went out, but everybody not receiving them. I'm not
They're
sure.
hearing what they want to hear,
Oh, boy.
because that is always mentioned. So you shouldn't be missing the memo.
Right. Okay, and around this time of year, you would find one thing we would see coming out from the Service Commission is a lot of promotions. And we are hoping that the guidelines and the procedures that is laid out in the civil service orders are followed when considering these promotions and so forth, so that everybody is satisfied with the process when person fills positions. And also we would see around this time a lot of overtime. And we are pleading with persons like departments like the Ministry of Agriculture, who have a lot of daily paid and so forth, that persons are paid in the correct manner in which
And on time.
they should, and on time. Right. So those
Customs
two
and
things,
so forth would get a lot of overtime too.
yes. Yeah. And I think income tax would be looking forward to, because based on how much revenue they bring in, then they get their little bonus.
Oh.
Next year, these are some things that some public servants would benefit from working throughout the year. So we are looking forward to 2025 as being a year where we see big changes and positive changes, not just for the union, but within the departments as well. And we talked about probation in the public service. A lot of persons are on probation for years and not have been appointed.
And
That cannot be true. You cannot be on probation in the public service for years and not being appointed.
Well,
yes,
you
we
should
have
not.
you should not.
But I don't know if It's, and that's why it's people, need to join a union, because the civil service orders, not the public service regulations, which is law in the Constitution, the civil service orders, which is now regulations under the Public Service Act, make provision for that. You cannot, well, you should not, by law,
Not.
if you are in a position and have been acting for more than the stipulated time, and you have not been appraised and given an extension, your appraisal has been poor, mediocre, and they have extended your probation. If that hasn't happened, then you have to be appointed. There are persons who are on a 2-year probation, right? And they have not been assessed in the 2 years. So when the 2 years gone now, they have to be appointed because the time has elapsed. You come into a system, no, it's too late. You have failed, or the manager, whomever has failed, and by law, since after 2 years, you have to appoint the person. It's not their fault that you failed to do your job, because you should not, unless you have been extended following within that time period. Unless you have been extended within that time period, you ought to be appointed. So I can't really, I don't know, that per se there are this huge set of people who are working in the public service and have been on probation for a very long time. I don't want to
It
believe
may not
that
be,
that is
it
the
may not
case.
be huge,
It
but
has,
there
the
are a number
amount,
of
there
persons.
have been a reduction in the amount of persons.
Yeah, but there's still
Yeah,
persons
but
who have that.
and
Because
So
I
in
think
the-
the other day we had
yeah, from the union's
something brought
perspective,
to
yeah.
us. I think it's 2 persons who,
yeah,
so
they need to
that
join
has
the
to be
union. Yeah.
to
Right. Before
to say that.
you wrap up, notable in 2024, and there's one thing I wish to commend the government on, and it has to do, one of the very important decisions that they made in 2024 is the increase in the minimum wage.
Yes,
Of course, we're gonna argue that we need to move from a minimum wage to a living wage, but the fact that they have increased it is quite notable. The records with respect to increases in minimum wage will show in 1989 to 2003, that 14-year period, it has been increased once. 2003 to 2008. In 2008, it was increased. That's a 5-year period. And it took 9 years for the other increase in 2017, and 7 years for the increase in 2024. So, as I said, it's commendable that the government of the day has paid attention to the issue of the minimum wage and to make the adjustment to try and keep up. I think we are still off by a great deal, but to try and keep in tune with the changes in the cost of living over the years. I think the minimum wage should be reviewed every 5 years, so that you don't have it every 14 after 14 years, and after 5 years, and after 17, after 9 years, and after 7 years. Consistently, in most countries, it is consistent over a period of time, whether it's 5-year period or 6-year period. So, I think the government needs to look at all of that, so that the minimum wage is reviewed every 5 years or so, so that people are not at a disadvantage as cost of living skyrocket. And then you will know whether it is to be increased. The other thing that must be mentioned is, this is Christmas season again, and the government have announced that 5,000 persons, this was stated at the budget also, 5,000 persons are going to be benefited, persons who have been affected by burial. I think it's a much needed assistance. I think some households are getting $1,200 a month for a certain period of time. So it's important for these disadvantaged persons who have been so affected to be getting these financial assistance at this particular time, when they could at least, enjoy the festivities or the period, the season that we are in. Um, Timeliness. Um, we know from the budget again that we're told that the repairs of many houses, but I've heard a lot of people have complained that their houses have not been touched and they have to fight
The process is
to
very
do
slow.
their own thing,
Mhm.
and that, of course, there has to be some way to expedite that. Taxpayers are spending a lot to fix many of these homes. Okay, it's taxpayers' money. So even if the government borrowed, it's the taxpayer who have to pay it back. And so, we need for persons to find relief soon as understand that, particularly in the grenades, the extent of the destruction is such that it may take time, but we need to try and make people's lives more comfortable and give them the reassurance that their issues will be looked at. I've heard people complain that they're being overlooked, and I've heard I've up to today, I heard someone say, there's a gentleman whose house was being repaired. He lost his roof, and they went to do over his roof. The carpenter that was doing over his roof said that they need to make a slight adjustment to the roof because he had one of those flat roofs, right? So he said, you need to change the roof style so that it become more hurricane resistant.
Mm.
And I was told that the people who are responsible for approving those things say, as an NDP man, no, that ain't happening. You understand?
We need to get away from this.
So we need to move away
Yeah.
from that sort of divisiveness and look at our people as Vincentians
and not
Mhm.
parties,
and not
yeah.
people who belong to whether ULP or NDP. And when you are repairing the houses, we're not repairing so that next hurricane season you have to repair again. You try to make the roofs more hurricane resistant. So if it has to go at a steep incline or something like that, whatever they have to do engineering wise, it needs to be done for protection from these natural disasters. Um,
But
that
that
is
should be
important.
something we're planning coming to in terms of
Right.
making sure that if the government is going to do this sort of, well, I say it, an investment, so that they won't have to be repairing in the next year or two, to make sure that
Yep.
the persons who are doing the repairs do it in such a manner,
Yeah.
and not so much the people who think who belong to which party have a say in that.
So all those
So
things are extremely important. The fisher folks, I know they are also getting some assistance. The farmers the farmers continue to get. Farmers,
and
could you
still giving
please
us
lower your prices? I agree that the government should be assisting all fisher folks who have suffered loss during burial, when the
bear it in
vessels have
mind that the
been
persons
damaged
who
and this sort
actually
of stuff.
getting the help are the ones who
Yeah, the government said
need
that
the
there are
help.
some people who will slip through the crack, right? So we hope those
Conveniently slip through the crack.
we hope
Mm.
those who slip through the crack, they're not too many, yeah, because there are people who really need the help,
Exactly.
and sometimes the people who really need the help do not actually get the help because other persons benefit as a result. So we trust that this process will be one that is fair, and everybody who persons who are affected or who are affected will get the necessary relief that they actually need. We did mention make a request for bonus for public servants, but our conscience, because we were told bonus, like you see we have with our burial, can't argue against that. Right. So the government, we know, has to spend a lot to assist to recover after burial and that sort of stuff. So we understand that, okay, yeah, well, you got a point. So all right, fine, back off it. Yeah, we understand that. So we all are actually making the sacrifice to ensure that everybody really get some assistance.
One of the drawback that the government, when they spoke about, is the lack of workers, not enough
Yeah.
workers, skilled workers. So
Skilled workers.
persons who are, if you're listening, whether laborers, carpenters, whoever, they that's another issue in terms of getting persons to do the repairs, especially in the grenadines. So we have to appeal to persons to get on board because we have to do it together. Because there's so many persons who would say they can't find work. Is it that some people can't find work or just don't want to work? I don't know. That's another discussion by itself.
Okay, so we are coming at the top of the hour. Actually, it's 10 o'clock. So I guess we have to do our Christmas wishes and all of that in one now. So, President.
Oh, shall I don't know yours? So that's
Hmm?
when you technically you don't know yours audio. So
Do
yeah,
what?
the Christmas greetings to the people.
But
Yeah. So I do wish a blessed Christmas to all our listeners, all the workers, and I do trust that we will remember the as we often say the reason for the season, and do not leave Christ out of the season because He is the reason for the season. And whatever we do, let us do it in moderation. Um, as Shelley said, don't buy too much ham.
don't buy the ham at all.
Maybe there's no Christmas without the ham. I'm sorry. Yeah, but let's enjoy the season. Share some love, give to those who don't have, and be caring and concerned for those who are less fortunate than many of us are.
So I'm going to, well, I did give my greeting, in terms of letting persons know, that I wish them a Merry Christmas and a blessed and prosperous New Year. Just to encourage persons to be mindful in terms of your eating and your drinking. Everything must be done in moderation. I know it's a festive time and it's a time that you have access to a lot of alcohol, a lot of food. It doesn't mean you have to eat everything. You can be a part of, but just be mindful because these things have implications. They have consequences after the fact that you have indulged and drink as much as you want and eat as much as you want. So just be mindful of that. As was mentioned before, look out for each other. Maybe you won't get anything, but you can if you can afford to reach out to somebody and you can offer some sort of gift, a token, whatever it is, do it. We didn't get any bonus this year, but at least we can still reach out to somebody, give a hug, give a call, find out how persons are doing, especially those persons who were dismissed. Remember them in your prayers. And if you can reach out and you can give, please do. Because at the end of the day, we are all one people. So until next year, God's willing, be good and have a productive week. Oh, I keep forgetting to say my thing. Remember to give an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. I have not been saying it. That's not good of me.
Yeah, that is true. That is
So,
true.
Ristas, thank you once again for sharing
Honestly, it's not me.
in whatever way you are going to share in advance. I'm telling you, thank you for sharing in advance during the season. And of course, be safe when you're shopping. Do it in moderation as well because January is always a tough month. So if you don't need to spend, don't spend. If you can give somebody a little extra, then do that. So on behalf of the Public Service Union, we would like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year and wish you for great things in 2025. Have a pleasant good evening.
Dede.
The protection of workers' rights is critical to the development of any country. Workers are the driving force behind any economy. The Public Service Union presents Psu Speaks, an interactive, informative, bi-weekly program discussing matters affecting the working class. Tune in to Nice Radio on 90.3, 96.7, and 101.3 every second and fourth Monday, 8 to 10 p.m. PSU Speaks. Don't you miss it. It's Christmas cleanup with All Islands Recycling. All Islands Recycling is now offering $3.45 per kilogram, 70 cents per kilogram more for all clear beverage bottles, including juice bottles. It pays to take care of your environment. Remember, it's cash, not trash. Simply rinse and remove bottle caps, bag bottle caps separately, sort bottles by color. Aluminum cans must be bagged separately. Limited time only.